Hello and welcome to a Blaseball Statistical History, a look at the Canada Moist Talkers development across the expansion era. The Moist Talkers opened and closed the discipline era well, with a slight performance dip in the middle as they adjusted to a new division. As they enter this new era, they are in a strong position, with some standout players in both the lineup and rotation. In Season 12, they finished second in their division, 8th overall, missing out on the postseason by one win, which had been stolen by the Black Hole during the season. It was a fairly quiet season. 2 players were swept elsewhere, and Lachlan Shelton had a party. In the election, they use a will to give Polka Dot Patterson the Flippers modification. However, they are promptly stolen by the mechanics. The other will infuses Greer Lot. The team also win 2 blessings, boosting their hitting and giving them the Earlbirds modification for next season. The rotation is weaker for Polka Dot's loss, but the boosts give an all-round improvement, which they use to their advantage, moving up to joint 6th in the league. This does qualify them for the postseason, but they are eliminated in the division series by the Fridays. This time they gain a win from Sun 2, and weather continues to be on their side, as Beans McBlaze gets a positive blood rain. Commissioner Vapor spends 20 days elsewhere, and Doc Anise leaves more permanently, as feedback weather sends Bright Zimmerman in exchange from the Pies. Election time sees Shirai McElroy move to the rotation, and the team claim Polka Dot back from the mechanics. They also win another blessing, gaining the permanent modification High Pressure. Regaining Polka Dot is important, as the feedback swap was not beneficial for the rotation. But it is all the team need, as they jump to the top of the league and only concede 2 games on their way to their first championship. Sun 2 blesses them with an additional win, while Black Hole steals 3 from their opponents. York Silk suffers a negative blood rain before being incinerated and replaced by Lucian Patchwork. 5 players also take trips to elsewhere. The Moist Talkers use their wills to revoke Bright Zimmerman, who roams to the Shoe Thieves, and to infuse the newly gained Lucian. They also win a blessing to sort their lineup in order of idolatry. Removing Bright from the rotation improves its power, and the lineup now opens strongly. And the Talkers maintain form, finishing second in the league and heading into another postseason, where they claim their second championship. They appear in the seasonal reading, but it makes no changes. During the season, they gain a win from Sun 2 and face their first consumer attacks. 2 players are swept elsewhere, and 4 are observed. In the election, they give Greer Lot a transfusion, and reclaim York Silk from the Crabs who necromancied them. The Stakes steal Polka Dot Patterson, but the Talkers also gain a blessing, giving them the H2O blood type. The lineup only looks stronger, but the rotation is damaged by Polka Dot's departure. It doesn't dent their performance too much, as they finish 4th in the league and head into another postseason, this time being knocked out by the mechanics in the division series. They appear in another seasonal reading, which yet again doesn't affect them. But it's an otherwise quiet season, as they lose 3 wins to Black Hole weather. In the election, they promote Augusto Reddick to the rotation and steal Richmond Harrison from the Sunbeams. Then the Garages steal York Silk. The rotation is still suffering, and the Garages' steal hits the lineup fairly hard, which is reflected by their small slip down the league to 10th. Their 3rd seasonal reading in a row doesn't inflict any changes. On day 70, 2 players are swept elsewhere, with only 1 returning this season. Commissioner Vapor is observed, Beans McBlaze gets 2 positive blood rains, and there are 3 parties to be had. They use their wills to move Carmelo Plums to the rotation, before sending them to the Firefighters in exchange for Gooby Balson. They also win a blessing, as the active roster all gain necklaces. The rotation gains a player, but both it and the lineup are still gappy. And as they drop to 16th in the league, this is clear. They steal 1 win with Black Hole weather, and Blood Rain grants 4 positives to 1 negative. Flooding has players coming to and from elsewhere, and Augusto Reddick decides to have a short break in the shadows. But there are 9 parties. The Moist Talkers get 4 gifts: Soul Patches, a replica of past player York Silk, they become the life of the party and gain an item. In the election, they use their wills to alternate Grialot and infuse London Simmons in the shadows. The Dalle swap Richmond Harrison for Randy Dennis, but the team get 2 blessings, as the lineup gain the slow build modification and their ballpark becomes open floor plan. And suddenly, the Moist Talkers are good again, with a packed rotation. But in season 19, being good is bad, and they finish joint 21st. They join the rest of the league in the seasonal reading, and for the first time a change occurs, as yooori becomes uncertain. They gain a win from the weather, but it then becomes a mixed bag, with 1 of each sort of Blood Rain and a whole team reverb. There are also 2 more trips elsewhere. But Fax Machine does move Gooby Balson onto the rotation, and there are 6 parties. They get 3 gifts, all modifications, as they become the life of and late to the party, as well as fireproof. Finishing so low in the league, they get 3 wills, which they use to alternate Amos Mellon, infuse London Simmons again, and make a player trade with the lift. They also win an impressive 4 blessings, as Jesus Koch gains the 5th base, all Shadows players gain a helmet, the lineup is once again sorted by idolatry, and the team gain the permanent modification, Moderation. Despite the reverb and other changes, the team still looks pretty strong. But it does not convert to results, and they finish 19th in the league, qualifying for the underbracket, which they are knocked out of in the division series by the Lovers. They gain a win from the weather, and there are 2 short trips to elsewhere. Beasley Gloom has an allergic peanut reaction, and is then moved in and out of the shadows. Grialot is sent to the Pies in a feedback with Jacoby podcast, and the team get 14 parties. Jesus Koch, who alongside 5th base also gained the Roman modification, leaves for the Pies. They pop back later on from the Lovers, but don't stay, heading to the Magic after 9 days. This season's gifts are a replica of Chorby Soul, an item, and becoming early to the party. They use their wills to steal Grialot back from the Pies and re-roll Cedric Spliff's Subtractor modification. However, they have to send Commissioner Vapor to the Spies due to a blessing. The Talkers remain a strong team, with their weaker players compensated for elsewhere. Despite coming 6th in the league, the Moist Talkers don't make it into the postseason, instead being wildcarded into the underbracket, where they make it all the way to the final before being beaten by the Sunbeams. They gain 7 wins from Sun 30, but lose 1 to Black Hole. 3 players take trips to elsewhere, with Augusto Reddick enjoying it so much they stay for the end of the season. Fax Machine makes a rotation change, and there are 6 consumer attacks, which are all defended against. Then Lucian Patchwork is shelled by Peanut Holloway. The team are given 3 more gifts, granting player items the A-Dense element, the team the late to the party modification, and Grialot becomes ambitious. Wills allow them to magnify Ziwa Mueller and take Nicholas Mora from the Tigers, only for them to be later stolen by a Friday's blessing. The mechanics choose to send Polka Dot Patterson back in exchange for Augusto Reddick, and the Lift want Cudi de Batterino back. Then the team win a blessing, as all of their shadows evolve to base 1. The lineup is now a player shorter, and the Lift's trade has left a hole in the rotation. With a small team, every weakness is amplified, which the Moist Talkers see as they tumble to 19th in the league. They qualify for the underbracket, but are instead wildcarded into the postseason. They are knocked out in the wildcard round by the Pies. During the season, they gain 8 wins from the weather, before Polka Dot Patterson has an allergic peanut reaction and becomes unstable. 3 brief trips are made to elsewhere, as Beasley Gloom is faxed in and out of the shadows 4 times, with voicemail making 3 lineup changes too. The Thieves Guild steals a Shadows player from the Fridays, and there are 12 parties to be had. Receiving 3 gifts grants the Talkers an item and replicas of both of the dynamic duo. In the election, wills are used to move Grialot to the rotation, and take Slosh Truck from the Georges, who in turn steal an item. The Lift revoke Mags Bananana, who joins the rotation. The Talkers win a blessing, flipping Ziwa, but they are sent to the Magic due to another blessing. They also lose a Shadows player to the Garages, and see newly acquired Slosh Truck become Skipping, and Lucian Patchwork a Subtractor, due to the Worms and the Fridays. After the election, Alejandro Leaf decides they've had enough of the Hall of Flame, and roams out to join the rotation, which gives the Moist Talkers double the number of pitchers to batters, as Lucian Patchwork remains shelled. The problem with a large rotation is it takes a long time to come back around to the best pitchers, which may cause the team some difficulties. Or it may not, as they come second in the league, and despite facing solid competition in the postseason, win their third championship. They are helped on their way by an additional 16 wins from the weather. Fax Machine enjoys the varied rotation, making 6 changes of its own, and 6 players are swept elsewhere. The Thieves Guild steals a player from the Pies, and Dunlap Figueroa pops by for 9 days with the 5th base, coming from the Mechanics and heading on to the Breath Mints. Slosh Truck is unstable but survives it, and Eugenia Garbage gets to party. The Talkers only get 2 gifts this season, but they become late to the party, and the still-shelled Lucian Patchwork becomes ambitious. Having gained their 3rd championship, the Moist Talkers evolve to Base 1, or Base 2 for a few players. They choose the Roamless Party favour and join the rest of the league in becoming under review. They send a Shadows player to the Tacos. Then, after the election, both Mags Banana and Alejandro Leaf roam on to the Tigers and the Fridays. The evolution certainly proves a boost for the team, and a reduced rotation gives more chance for the best pitchers to play. 4 of the players had played for the Rising Stars in the semi-centennial, but none were heisted. Polka Dot Patterson and Tiana Wheeler returned to the lineup and Shadows respectively, but Slosh Truck and Eugenia Garbage have moved to the rotation. But the chaos of Season 24 does not allow that to shine, as the Moist Talkers finish 7th in their new division of the Vault, and 15th of the original 24 ILB teams. Along the way, they gained 6 wins from Sun 30. Fax Machine continues to be active with 6 changes, and Voicemail makes 1. London Simmons cannot get enough of Elsewhere, being one of the very few players to finish the era there. They also find time to be unstable alongside Lucian Patchwork. The team face 8 consumer attacks, 6 of which are defended against, and the Thieves Guild steals Montgomery Bullock from the Crabs. The Moist Talkers do some travelling in Season 24, initially heading to the Hall, being the first team to reach it, before joining the rush at the coin with the rest of the Rogue teams. They then decide to try to reach the Vault for the end of the era. In the expansion era, the Moist Talkers faced 1 incineration, 2 feedbacks and 1 reverb, whilst benefiting from 46 parties. There were 2 allergic peanut reactions, but Blood Rain was in their favour, with 8 positive to 3 negative. They had the most positive black holes in Mild Low, with 23 to 12 negative, while Sun 2 was less good, with 10 positive to 12 negative. 1 of their players was shelled, 4 unstable, 5 observed but none redacted. They didn't have any night shifts, but there were 4 voicemails and 22 fax machines. The Thieves Guild did a great job, stealing 3 Shadows players and not forfeiting any. 37 players were swept elsewhere, which is the most in the division, but the longest trip was only 58 days. They gained 26 wins from Sun 30 and only faced 15 consumer attacks. Their Arcana the Hierophant appeared in 4 seasonal readings, the most out of Mild Low. They competed in 6 postseasons, once as a wild card, and won half of those, winning the most championships of any team in the expansion era. They also played in 2 underbrackets, once as a wild card, but didn't win either of those. They were the only Mild Low team to be an underbracket wildcard. They were given 18 gifts, used 23 wills, and won 14 blessings. At the end of the era, the Moist Talkers have evolved to Base 1, and become Rogue. They have 1 shelled player and 1 elsewhere. Their rotation is nearly 3 times the size of their lineup, but the whole team is filled with stars, leaving them in a strong position. Thank you for joining me for another Blaxplanation. I'll be back with more Blaseball fun and facts soon, but until then, rejoice, play ball.